Now I'll show you a different way to add the button to the graphical user interface directly from the Java code, not from the XML file. So we won't need this line anymore because the view won't be defined in the layout. We will create the resource directly from the Java code. And I move to the XML file to delete this definition of the button. Okay. Let's go back to the Java code. Now I need to create the button directly from here. So button pink is a new button. I need to provide a context for that. That will be the application context. After that, I can define a couple of characteristics of the button, such as the text color, for instance, button pink dot set text color. I think the color was black. Okay, there is a constant in the color class already defined for the black color. Now we need to set the background color as well. Set background color. And here, since we didn't use a standard color, I'll use the parse color method from the color class, which allow us to use the same definition as before. So it was ft, let me check, 9b f3. Okay, so that was our pink background. Okay, and now I'm ready to add this to the layout, except that I need a reference to the layout in order to be able to add my button to it. So let's go back to the XML file. And here you see that we don't have an ID yet. So let's add one. Android ID and let's call it I don't know, relative layout main screen. Okay. Now that we set an ID for the relative layout, I can go back to the Java code, retrieve a reference to this layout. So I'll create a relative layout variable called relative layout main screen. And again, I can use the find view by ID method to retrieve it. So it was relative layout my screen. I need to cast that in order to transform it into a relative layout. Okay, and now I can just use the add child method, the add view method, sorry, to add the pink button to this layout. Button pink. Okay, since the button is not defined in the XML file anymore, if you look at the design view, in the preview, you won't see the pink button anymore. So let's try the new code on the emulator. Okay, so the pink button is here, but we're missing the text, and it's not at the right location. It should be below the blue one, and it should the width should match the one of the screen. So let's go back to the code and fix that. So first, let me add the text for the button. Button pink dot set text. It should read the pink Panthers to-do list. All right. And next we need to make the view larger. So that's a little more tricky. Here we need to create layout parameters. So that's relative layout dot layout params. Okay, let's call them params. So it's a new relative layout params. Okay, so the first one is that we want the button width to match the parent, so that's relative layout dot layout params. So there is a constant for that, it's called the match parents. Okay, so that's the width of the button, and the second at the height of the button, because that's mandatory to define both. So relative layout and so the second value should be wrap content. Okay, so that defines the size of our button. And now we need to decide on the position of the button in relation with the position of the blue button. So we need to add a new role to our parameter. It's add role. We want to set the below rule to be equal to, so it should be below button blue. So I need to get the ID of the blue button. And when I add the button to the relative layout, I just add a second parameter, which is the params that I've just created. Okay, let's try this new version. Okay, so it looks exactly like we wanted it to. And if I click on the pink button, I have the pop-up, and if I click on the blue button, it disappears. In this video, I've shown you how to include a button to your graphical user interface. The first solution is to define the button directly into the XML file. You can use a graphical design tool to visualize the interface as you built it. The second solution is more indicated when you can't define a static graphical user interface, when you decide which views to include on your screen only during runtime. In that case, you can define the button directly into the Java code using the button constructor. Next, you can set properties such as background color or the text using methods associated with the view object. After that, you need to retrieve a reference to the parent layout, and then you can call the add view method on it to add the button to the parent layout. If you need to define additional layout parameter to position the view or to set its width, then you do so by creating a layout params object, and then you can provide this object to the add view method. To attach an action to a button, the first solution is to indicate the name of the method to call in the onClick property of the button in the XML file. Then in the Java file, you define the method with the public void signature and parameter view. This parameter indicates the view which triggered the method call. The second solution is in the Java code, to retrieve a reference to the button using the findViewById method. Then you associate a listener with this button using the setOnClickListener method. And last, you need to define the onClick method for the class which implements the onClickListener interface.